It's called acting. So
Okay, you're ready to go now
Okay.
on YouTube.
All right. Good morning. 12 p.m. Call to order. This is a meeting of the Personnel Board for the town of Southborough, Massachusetts, virtual meeting via Zoom, Wednesday, August 12th, 2020, 12 p.m. Welcome, everyone. I am asked to read this statement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general laws, chapter 38, section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Personnel Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Thanks for listening. Also, the meeting is being recorded and all votes will be by roll call. Thank you again to our Zoom host, Vanessa Hale, and for whatever glitches you and Tom magically made disappear. And I'm told that the public has full access as they always would to the meeting. So thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate that. All right, we're on number 2, administrative business. Approval of minutes. These are pages 2 to 4 in the board packet. The minutes having been circulated to the board before the meeting, the reading is waived. Any corrections from the members? See any corrections? Seeing no corrections, the chair approves the minutes as presented in the packet. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to 3, chair's report. The first item here, I don't have an expense report for this meeting, so we'll go on to the invoice in your packet. This is page 5. This invoice was presented to me in between our July meetings or maybe the day before a meeting, so it didn't make it into the packet. I approved it under the authority that this board has given me. And then when I was filing it away, I noticed that the Clear Company invoice went up a bit. I didn't notice it when I was signing this invoice. Everything was prepared and was in order, but it went up almost 17% from last year, the same product, from $3,000 to $3,500. So I just asked Ms. Hale and Mr. Purple if they could address that. And I guess my question is, do we have a contract with this vendor? And is this something we may see again? Or I just thought it was prudent for the board to be aware. It's a small item relative to the town
Sure.
budget, but it's a big item relative
Sure.
to the personnel board.
Yeah, it was indeed a $500 increase. We do have a contract. It goes year to year. In fact, about a year or so ago, we used to be on a different cycle that did not match our fiscal year. So we asked them to switch that for us so we could pay out July 1st and end on June 30th. So if there were any change, we could address that, through our operating budget. This is probably our 4th or 5th year with Clear Company using the applicant tracking system. And I don't think there has been an increase at all. I do believe this may have been the first time. So it is, unfortunately, has gone up a bit.
All right, any questions or comments or concerns about this from the board? I guess I just have a general question because this is really the only contract that we have right now. Is there a process under the contract or can they just impose any raise they want?
I believe they can. This is a contract that it's a national company, with many of our other work that we do within our whole town organization, we work with, more local vendors. In this case, they are more of a national company, so we don't have that kind of ability to negotiate a price. But the Board of Selectmen actually during one of their goal setting discussions wanted us to look at, many of the things that we bid out. This is, certainly could fall under that capacity. So I'm happy if the board would like to during the coming year, look at other vendors and get some other prices. This is the one we have been using and we've been satisfied with.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Mr. Dietz, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I deal with ATSs all the time. I was actually just did an RFI to implement one at one of the companies that I'm working with. A lot of times they do have something in place where the price goes up. A lot of times it goes by how many employees you actually have in the system and that you're working with. So once you hit like 50 employees, then the price of their
I
product
can't get
will
my
actually
volume.
jump up a certain percentage.
Well, if the board is not concerned, I just looked at it and I didn't know, everyone has their own level of what they react to, and I saw 17% and thought I would ask the question. I have no way to evaluate this vendor. If somebody wants to, as Ms. Hale has suggested, they're going to be reevaluating these. I don't know who on behalf of the town is responsible for vendor relations and with this particular vendor. Who goes back and says, hey, I've done my research and this is high, this is, oh, you wouldn't say it's too low. Is there anybody who fills that role, or a contract at this lower level wouldn't get that scrutiny?
At this lower level, I don't think there would be that kind of scrutiny. Certainly, anything over $10,000 per year would, then you hit different procurement regulations.
Okay, well, if the board has no comment, I will move on. Everybody good? We're on Chair's Report 3, and it's on communications update, and it's pages 7 to 14 in your packet. At our last meeting, I gave you a speech on communications and messaging. I don't have a speech today. This is just a follow-up. We've taken quite a few actions that have import for the broader community. So I summarized them in the table on page 7. And just so we're all on the same page, I printed all the emails so everybody can see what's gone out into whom. Any questions or comments from the board? Was that all pretty straightforward?
Yep.
No comments. Okay. So moving on to Chair's Report, goal setting. I listened in on the Board of Selectmen goal setting meetings, July 21st and August 4th. Don't know if any of you had a chance to listen. It was inspiring. They were all together in a room with Ms. Hale and Mr. Purple, and I really applaud them for making that work during these difficult times.
Very socially distanced at the public
Yes.
safety room.
And actually, I made the observation to Mr. Healy in between the meetings that watching you guys in a room together, I could see that the communication, I think, flows better for the participants. Even when you're looking at each other from 8 feet away with a mask on, but it was a little harder on the audio for the audience. So they got Tom LaFlamme in there for a second meeting, and it was just terrific. And one of the things that they talked about at both meetings was personnel and the importance of communicating with our board, and they look forward to meeting with us. And I think that's great. And as a follow-up, I did send an email to the vice chair and the chair of personnel, just saying, heard your meeting, think it's great. We always love to communicate. I told them September was looking a little busy for our board with the synchronization. And maybe October, and we'll get to our calendar in just a minute. So I was inspired by Mr. Purple and the Board of Selectmen that this board should have more of an official goal-setting meeting. During my tenure on this board, there's been talk about goals, but more in a kind of a loose setting. And as chair, I've encouraged anybody who has topics to bring them forward, but I don't think ever in a more of a official, let's everybody have a list, let's have a real goal setting meeting. So I'd like to do that if that makes sense to this board. I think a lot of times we try to address things randomly or serially as they come up, and maybe it might be a nice thing to sit down and do that in the context of a calendar. And that's why I put proposed calendar. We are as a board driven by the fiscal calendar, the town meeting calendar, and we're calendar driven. So maybe if we could sit down and decide when we want to have a goal meeting and when we want to discuss our SAP changes. So my chair's report number 3 and chair's report number 4 bleed into each other. And I put a proposed calendar just for discussion purposes in the packet at 15. Really not setting any firm dates, just trying to rough out where we might be going. I would like to get a little bit more organized. My last thing I want to say is this is a great board. We've now all been on the board for some time. We've been working together. I'm going into my 4th year. Jay, you're not far behind me, believe it or not.
Like 6
3 and a
months.
half. Everybody's been here at least a couple of years, I think, certainly more than a year. So I think we're poised to do good things together, and I would just like to maybe lead you in a little more organized fashion. So I'm open to comments from the board on how does that sound?
Yeah.
All right, anybody have any comments about the proposed calendar? Number 15 in the packet.
I like it.
No,
Thanks. So in a little while, a little further down the agenda, we'll talk with Mr. Valentine and Mr. Purple and Ms. Hale about the synchronization. So I think September will be given up to synchronization. I'd like to do our goal setting meeting in October. So if everybody could bring a list, even 1 or 2 or 3 things. And I would ask you to do the following before the goal setting meeting. Take a look at our minutes. They're a pretty good, accurate record of what we talked about, including some of the things that we said, oh yeah, we need to go back to that. I found one just the other day, Vanessa, that you and I discussed in a meeting. It was section 11 or 13 of the SAP. A year ago, we said, yeah, that really needs attention for FY22. So that kind of thing, whatever catches your attention. Also, please review the FY21 SAP and the things that we didn't get to or things that may be bothering you. And I invite Mr. Purple and Ms. Hale, as always, to join in that analysis. Our town administrators are the ones who live with the employees, hire the employees, and have to guide the employees through the SAP on a day-to-day basis. Of course, the board's always here, but they're the ones in the front lines. So if something isn't working for them, this will be my 4th year working on the SAP. And I always start with Mark and Vanessa and I say, what's not working for you? What do you want to change? So please join us for that meeting. And then maybe we could meet with the BOS in November after we have a better idea of where we're going, if that makes sense. And then December, January, we can look at SAP recommendations all together. Does this look like a good rough roadmap to you guys?
it does. Yep.
All right, thanks for your support. That's great. All right. Moving on, we have section 4 of our agenda, item 4. We have 1 probationary review. This is Carol Logan at the library. Just to be clear, this is an FY20 review, a last year review that we would have seen last spring, but for the pandemic. So is Mr. Donovan with us?
Yes.
Okay, this is his employee. This is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions about Ms. Logan's review? All
I
right,
don't have a question about the review, which looked fine. I have a process question, just so we're clear.
certainly,
so-
excuse me. Yeah,
So the 2.5% is the increase you'll get retroactively from her, we'll use the term anniversary date, which I think was May 5th, until June 31st. And then pursuant to the new system, I assume Ryan will resubmit the evaluation and she'll then get, I would guess, the 2.8% prorated from July 1 until next June 31st.
that would be my understanding of how these numbers are being run. But I'm not the ultimate word on that. If Mr. Dietz or Mr. Ballantyne, if Mr. Ballantyne is with us, again,
Is.
I make no bones about the fact that I've always been confused about how the numbers work. So
Yes, you're correct, Betsy. It's, oh, well,
Okay,
correct. Dave, or Barry, whoever said that, I was looking down. That is going to be prorated. You're correct.
all right.
I had it the same way as well.
I'm sorry, Jay, I couldn't hear you.
I agree with Barry. It's the same. I have it in my thought the same way as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rubenstein, for the question. Are there any other questions on the consent agenda?
No.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to approve a 6-month salary increase for Carol Logan, library assistant, from a current pay rate of $20 an hour, a 2.5% increase to $20.50 an hour, retroactive to May 5th, 2020. Is the motion so moved?
Second,
All right, all in favor, Mr. Deeds,
Approve.
Ms. Jazinski,
Yes.
Mr. Nixon,
yes,
Mr. Rubenstein,
Yes,
and Ms. Rosenblum votes in the affirmative, so it is unanimous. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 5, I guess it is. New business. And in my never-ending quest to keep us organized and efficient, I have a category for departmental requests. And the only one we had this meeting is from the library, and that is a request to set a new pay rate for library technicians. And we have Library Director Donovan with us, and you're at pages 9. Oh, gosh, hang on. Page 17, 18, and 19 of your packet. Mr. Donovan, you have the floor.
So, hello, everyone. How are you?
Hello. We can't see you, but perhaps that was by design.
I feel like just hearing my voice is enough, right?
I
for
just
most
wondering-
people.
I was just wondering, Mr. Donovan, if you were having as bad a hair day as I am having.
I think your hair looks great, Betsy.
Thank you. Just pretend I just came back from the beach, because that's what I'm doing. Okay,
So this is sort of a procedural thing. We had discussed this last year, was sort of making the differentiation between we have high school library pages, and we have I have 4 of those left now, and then we had some adult library pages. So we had worked to create a new position in the SAP that was approved with town meeting. So that's library technician. These are the 3 employees that are going to be moving into that role. So.
are there any questions are you done, Mr. Donovan?
I mean, I can just say, and the memo reflects this, but they're currently paid $11.07 an hour. Their pay rate will go up to $12.25, which is the minimum of the Schedule C Grade 2 position, which is where library technician falls.
And this was approved by your board, and this is based on approval at town meeting of the new position. You had to await town meeting approval of the position.
Yeah, we thought this was going to happen back at annual town meeting in April. So it's been obviously delayed because of COVID. So.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Donovan? All right.
there's just a typo on the forms. In the grids, it says Schedule C Grade 3. When I think it should say Schedule C Grade 2.
Mr.
Oh.
Rubenstein is correct. I apologize. That is a typo.
It says
proof-
grade 2 in the body of the memo. So yeah. All right. Thank you, Mr. Rubenstein.
Further proof that I need to go through an editorial process. So.
Well, it is August and we're all on vacation.
It's summer, Ryan, no worry.
Summer. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. The chair will entertain a motion to approve promotional pay raises for Linda Benavides. How do I print Benavides?
Benavides.
Benvides, thank you for Linda Benvides, Marjorie O'Neill, and Kathleen Schoner. And that would be, what would the effective date be on those?
I
July
think-
1st,
I believe it's effective
or when
to
the,
this date, to this meeting. I think you have to approve it
yeah,
here.
so
So-
effective this date from an hourly rate of $11.07 an hour to $12.25 an hour.
So move.
All right, this will be by roll call. Oh, we need a second.
Second,
Thank you. Mr. Dietz,
Yes,
Ms. Jazinski,
Yes,
Mr. Nixon,
Yes.
Mr. Rubenstein,
yes,
and Ms. Rosenblum votes in the affirmative. So it is unanimous. I just sometimes when I go back, well, now I have a recording to do the minutes. It's terrific. We make a motion, but it doesn't have the effective date of it. And as I report that to payroll, I want to make sure, and please correct me if I don't include that, that the board should state the effective date of their action. All right. Mr. Donovan, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Mrs. Rosenblum, and thank all of you. for-
Carry on with your good work of bringing books to the public.
We will. Thank
All
you.
right. We're on 4B, new business, board policies and practices. We are on page 20 and 21. That's a tuition reimbursement policy. I had a request from Ms. Jazinski that we put this policy on the agenda. She had some things she wanted to revisit, so I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Jazinski.
thank you, Ms. Rosenblum. Okay. I just had a quick question for everybody to just think about. We have taxpayers paying into this tuition reimbursement plan. And I really have a question about us paying for a pass or fail course. Pass or fail course does not require the amount of work it takes to do a regular class courses. There's no labs, there's no papers. It's pretty much let's get a pass or fail course just to get something, get some extra credits if you're in college. It's not a really great heavy duty learning course. It's pass or fail. Personally, I don't believe the taxpayer should be paying for that. I think that we should only be paying for courses that you get a grade. And that B level is, they can't be below a B right now, for the courses, which I think is great. I just think we should take out the pass or fail. I have a problem with the taxpayers paying for that.
my only caveat back to that is right now, a lot of classes are only pass-fail just because of COVID. Like my daughter's entire semester last year, they didn't give out grades. It was just pass-fail no matter what. They don't have the option. So if due to the COVID, because the classes are online, some schools are only giving you a pass-fail grade. They're not giving a letter grade.
Okay. that
Let's
I
take
would
a
not
step
agree.
back. Can we take a step back for a minute? Because I just want to frame the debate so everyone's on the same page.
But I do agree with you on the other side. If it wasn't this, I agree that it should be a grade. Right?
I just want to take a step back procedurally and frame this. And thank you, Dorian. Thank you, Jay. We sent out this tuition reimbursement policy very recently. It just became effective July 1st. So I want to clarify if Ms. Jazinski is asking us to change it now or when we make the decision.
This is for
Are you
next year.
saying as of next July, I want it to be?
Yes, this is for next year. It
Thank
has
you.
nothing to do with this policy. We just sent out. I would not ask us to redo that. I'm looking forward to try to change this going forward for next year,
All right.
for 22.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Without getting to the merits, and certainly if anyone wants to speak to the merits, I don't want to deny them that opportunity, but my thought is perhaps we should put this discussion into one of those boxes on the proposed calendar, along with any other changes. If we're not going to be trying to do this right now, we have an important thing, synchronization we're trying to get to, so I appreciate it. And at the time that Dorian brought this to me, I hadn't created that calendar or those little boxes. But it makes sense to me that this might be part of a general discussion a little later in the year about things we want to do with the SAP or with policies. And the reason, I think there's an extra reason maybe to delay this conversation. And this feeds off of something Jay said. I would perhaps be thinking very differently about the merits of what Dorian said pre-COVID. Pass fail was a maybe, I don't know. I don't know what she knows about pass fail. I need to do a little more research, maybe talk to some students. But now the whole world of learning has changed during COVID. So if we can delay this discussion, not for the sake of delay, but because it makes sense to us procedurally, I think we could all learn a little bit more about what environment we're in. Maybe talk to some of the employees, Ms. Esposito, Ms. Danza, maybe, you know, people who have used this benefit recently. I would be happy to reach out to them, perhaps Ms. Jasinski, and get a little more information. With that, I open it up to the board if they have anything they want to add.
Yeah, my only other piece would be a lot of certifications that people get. It's not an actual class, but let's say that they're just going for a certification on something. That certification may only be a pass fail. It may not be an actual grade as well. So I don't want to relegate it to just being, you have to have a B or above. It can't be pass fail, because a manager says, hey, go take this course. It may only be a pass fail course.
But you can add a bullet point on there that if that's what they're going for, a certificate of any kind or licensing, that can be a separate bullet point that we would cover that. But for a college course to be a pass fail, it's not the same intensity, and it's not the same. You don't learn the same from a pass fail course. Basket weaving 101 is not the same as a biology lab it's not the same thing. And you can look at the course curriculums. I've looked at several of them in schools. The pass fails don't require you to do as much of a workload. That's where my concern is. And I don't care if they take a pass fail, but I don't believe that the taxpayers of Southborough should be paying for it. If they want to take a pass fail course, they should take it and pay for it on their own. The taxpayers work really hard in this town to earn their money. They pay an awful lot of taxes here. And to me, I don't think it's a fair request to pay for somebody's pass fail course. That's me personally. That's why I wanted to bring this back to everyone to discuss it. I feel very strongly about it. And I don't mind paying for regular courses at all. Don't care about paying for licensing or certifications. Don't have a problem with those. Have a problem with the pass fail course. So I think we should revisit this, because I'm not looking to change this year. I'm looking for next year. I just wanted to talk to you guys about it, because I feel very strongly about that point.
Yeah, we take your point. Thank you very much, Dorian. So does
Yeah.
anyone have an issue with delaying this till a little later in the year procedurally?
Actually, I think it would be prudent for us to revisit this the first of the year, early part of next year, when we have a better sense of where we stand with COVID-19.
Thank you. So if you look on, thank you, Mr. Nixon. If you look on page 15, maybe pull that out of your packet. We'll be coming back to it. That is the proposed calendar. We'll have meetings in December and January to do SAP. And at the same time, we'll be looking at tuition reimbursement applications. Maybe we should do it together with tuition reimbursement applications
I think
in
that would be good.
January,
Yeah,
right?
that makes much better sense.
Okay.
Or
So-
later.
And in the meantime, I also have an ulterior motive. I'd like to do a little bit of research on it. I cannot speak to the merits of, I don't have an opinion on the merits of Ms. Jasinski's argument on her point, because I really don't know that much about it. So this will give me time to become better informed and talk to employees. So with consent of the board, sense of the board, to table this to January, is that good with you, Dorian?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And again, if you have any written materials you want to submit for the packet at that time, please do.
Okay.
Including any notes from any research that you've done, and everybody is encouraged to do the same as well. Thanks. All right, the next item on the agenda is new business C, and this would be for the SAP for FY22. Yes, Ms. Hill.
Sorry, did you want to chat about the deadline for tuition reimbursement in June?
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. We did have a second item. Ms. Jasinski wanted to add a documentation deadline. So Dorian, I would table that change to the policy as well. And this year we can just let people know when they come in January to talk to us about the application, we can verbally tell them, you have a deadline of X.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
fine.
Both of them.
Yep.
Great,
Yep, that's
great
fine.
catch, Vanessa. Thanks very much.
Mhm.
So the whole topic will be in January. And I'm annotating the calendar on page 15. January will be tuition reimbursement, applications and policy. Great. All right. So on C, we had a recommendation from Mr. Dietz at our June meeting, right before town meeting, to look at the definition of anniversary date. And again, in keeping with what I just said to Dorianne, I'm thinking maybe we should put this in one of those boxes for later on. But out of deference to Mr. Dietz, he asked to be on the agenda. We didn't let him talk about it in June because we were right before a town meeting. And we said we would put it on the agenda after town meeting. So, Mr. Dietz, I'll give you the floor with the caveat that maybe this is something the board might also want to delay to a little further in the year. But Jay, you have the floor on anniversary date. And I just want to say, I put a memo in the packet. This isn't the first time we've looked at this.
Yep.
Page 22 was my memo to, when Jay proposed looking at anniversary date, it rang a bell. I knew we had done this in January, but we didn't get it into the SAP for 21. So just a little summary of what we talked about before. And Jay, you have the floor.
Sure. I'm fine with moving the anniversary date. If I'm in the meeting, if we need to. It was more just the anniversary date was, we would bring them on and then they would do their 6 months probation, and then their anniversary date would technically be when their 6-month probation was over, which I think their anniversary date should be the day they start, not 6 months later.
Yeah, and just to pick up on Jay's point, and I agree completely with, if you look at the SAP and these places, there's no need for the use of the term anniversary date. But B, I think it uses the term hiring date when it means starting date.
Right.
So I think, and I'm fine with deferring it, but I think what we need to do is use the term starting date as a definition and clean up the SAP to use that term, because that's what triggers benefits, vacations.
Right.
It's the actual start date, not the date someone was hired.
Right, your hire date could be September 1, your start date could be October 1. But on from September 1 to October 1, you're not working. That's just the date you were hired. Your start date, like Barry just said, that's the date your benefits start. Your start date and anniversary date are essentially the same day.
Right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Looking at the calendar, I think an appropriate place to put this would be December. That will be the first meeting where we talk about, if we follow this schedule, I would recommend tabling it till December. That's when we would start to talk about SAP changes, and no better place to start than section 1. I would also note, part of the reason I want to get us a little more organized is we talked about this 6 months ago, but never brought it to resolution. So I want to do my best as chair to keep us on track. These are great ideas, and I want to make sure once we start discussing them, we bring them to closure. So to that end, I would ask the folks that have these great ideas, just do a memo, like a 1-page. I find it helpful if I see it in the packet ahead of time, then I come to the meeting informed. Is that something that works for the rest of you? I spend a lot of time with the packet. Would it help you if people who had these ideas put them in writing? Or are you just comfortable hearing it for the first time at the meeting? I'm just throwing that out there.
I'm fine with hearing it.
You're fine just hearing it? Okay. Anybody else like the memo in the packet idea? No. All right. I'm the only one. I'm a visual learner, not an audio learner. I like to see stuff ahead of time. So if anybody, I would find it easier to have a discussion about a change to the SAP if I had the proposal in front of me in the packet, and if we all had it in front of us. And I think the reason this failed last time is I put something in writing and somebody said, no, that doesn't really understand it. You have to have hire date or start date instead of hire date. not all of us are HR people. So if the people who are HR people put something concrete in writing, it makes it easier for the dummies like me. I throw it out there. If you don't do it, then we'll have a discussion like we're having now. Does December work for you, Jay?
Yeah, that's great.
All right. And again, if you want to put something in writing, works for me, but I seem to be out of sync with the rest of the board. Nobody. All right, enough said. All right, thank you. I've made a note to table that to December. All right, we have, moving on to old business. We have our favorite topic, synchronization. Progress, updates, issues, and then we need to schedule some meetings to review all of the performance evaluations that we've asked. So I'll just start with, there is an employee census. I put that back in the packet for your review, page 23 and 24 for reference. So I'll just lead off by saying there were a couple of questions that arose when I sent out the synchronization document. And that synchronization document is in your packet at page 13. It's embedded in the communications email. It's one page, page 13. So I sent that out to the interested parties and I got a couple of questions back. And I had 3 possible pathways. One, ask you to have an emergency meeting to answer the questions. 2, tell the reviewers they had to wait till August 12th till we had this meeting to ask you to resolve the questions, or make a couple of executive decisions. So I chose the third path and made a couple of executive decisions and gave answers to department heads so we could keep the process rolling. And in so doing, I consulted with a +1. I had 2 basic questions that came to me. One, I consulted with Mr. Dietz, and one I consulted with Mr. Rubenstein, because my understanding of open meeting laws, I can consult with 1, but not 2. So the first question was, and I want the board, I want to be on the record so the board knows what I told folks. This was a question about what did we mean when we said an employee had had a review? Did that mean the employee had an anniversary date and was due for a review and should have been reviewed, or the date that it came before the board? What was the determining factor? And I think Ms. Hale also had this question on behalf of Mr. Purple. What did the board mean? So I conferred with Jay, and I told anyone who asked me that question that I thought the board meant had a review come before the board. So that would be the determinative date. So if you look at the employee census, it isn't the date the review was supposed to come before us. It was the date that it actually landed. So if it landed before March, they were in one category under the guidance. And if it came to us between March and June, it was in the other category. Any question about that? Y'all good with that?
Yes.
Does this make sense? Okay. And the second one was just a little glitch where it says any, and I'm looking at the guidance, page 13, any employee whose last review is prior to March 1st. We asked them to complete a new evaluation, but then we just asked them to submit the cover sheet. So that was a question. Why am I doing a full review and then not sending it in? And I spoke with Mr. Rubenstein, and he explained that the guidance was drafted from the point of view of the board, who had decided they were no longer going to see the full reviews. But actually Ms. Hale needs them for the personnel files, and I need them because I'm still reviewing the full reviews on behalf of the board. So I sent out an email clarifying that. And I spoke with Mr. Rubenstein about that, and I think that's kosher. Anybody have any comment on that? That was just more something we didn't catch in the document.
Mhm.
Okay, so now we're on to the second part, which is the procedure for the rollout. So if you see on the census that you have in your packet, 23 and 24, there are some 58 employees listed, but when I counted them, how many we actually get reviews for, there's a bunch that we don't get reviews for, such as library pages. So the number of reviews will be somewhere between 40 and 45 by my estimate. We've asked for those to come in on by August 31st, and they are coming in. They just wanted to review the procedure while we were all together. Vanessa and I will get the full reviews. Vanessa will give the cover sheets to Ms. Pasakane in payroll, and she does her little QC with her initialing. And I've told Kristen that some 40 to 45, maybe 50 reviews are going to be coming her way, so we can, guess, talk to Mr. Ballantyne about getting her time to do all those. I will review them on behalf of the board, and then we have a meeting set. We have one meeting set for September 9th. We've calendared a meeting. And that's where I'm at. I just wanted to discuss what's going to happen, and we can, if Mr. Ballantyne is here, I'd love to hear from him about the prorating part, the number part. And then maybe decide how we want to schedule, how long we think it'll take to review these, and set up either an extra long meeting or a couple of shorter meetings. So I'll open up the floor to anybody who has a question, and then maybe Mr. Ballantyne can speak to his end of it. Thanks.
No, I just think we need to realize, and I think this is your point, Betsy, that we're going to get between 200 and 250 pages of reviews to go through. So I think we'll all need time to digest, to read through and digest all that.
Yes, good point, Barry, because you're going to be getting cover sheets for some, but you're going to be getting full reviews from others. So it's going to be a significant stack. So right now we have a meeting scheduled for the 9th. So my first question, I guess this goes to Mr. Ballantyne. Ms. Pasakane so Vanessa and I are going to have 40 to 50 reviews and cover sheets by August 31st. And we have a holiday on the 7th and a meeting scheduled for the 9th, because I think Dorian was going to go away, so we didn't schedule it on the 16th. My concern is that going to be enough time for Kristen, assuming they all come in on August 31st, for Kristen to do her quality check and us to do our review so we can discuss them on the 9th, or do we want to push it off a week?
Is that a question for her or for us?
I'm sorry, Jay, I'm having trouble with your audio.
Would that be a question for her or for us? If she can.
It's a joint question. We're all in this together, Jay.
I don't-
But
if she
I'm
can
first
get
to Mr. Bell. I did check in with Kristen yesterday. It was about the Carol Logan review. But I did let her know this was coming, and I think she prefers if we talk to her boss about the use of her time during that time frame. And since Brian is intimately involved in this process and helping us make it happen, and he's here, maybe we can talk to him about that.
Sure. So just as an aside, just to let you know, so the spreadsheet with all the employees and their proposed raises and the prorating is all finished, thankfully. I went through it first, shipped it to Kristen. Kristen went through it, and it was just important to verify all the anniversary dates and the rates and all that. So that's actually done, which is good news. As to getting them all in at once, it would probably be, if there's any way to, as they come in, to get them and look at them, you know, and then if there's a change when the personnel board meets, we can always deal with that. But perhaps that would be better if we could do a little at a time. August 31st is not a payroll week, which is good, because payroll weeks are every other week, and that's when Kristen is, just because of her duties, she's got limited time. So that's actually fortunate. So I think even if they all came in at the 31st, it would kind of be a sticky week for her, but I think she could probably handle it. She's pretty good at going through them. So, you know, I don't think we're going to have a problem there. Not to speak for her, but it just fell on a good week is more the point.
She said you could speak for her, Brian.
Oh, yeah, and then I'll suffer for it.
Oh, she said talk to my boss, but you're telling us the real deal. All right. So given the homework she's already done on this, my impression was it would not take her days
No,
to get to QC, because she will already have the anniversary dates and the raises.
yes, there's been a lot of work beforehand, so.
Knowing Kristen, that's a half a day or less.
Yeah.
Okay. Vanessa, would it be possibly for you? So there was an issue once upon a time with giving cover sheets to, this is actually further down on the topic, but anyway, whether or not you give Kristen the whole review or just the cover sheet, that's something I want to talk about a little later down under performance evaluations. Would it be possible for you to forward her piece to her as they come in?
Yes, yeah. In
Okay.
fact, I was talking to a couple of department heads this week about, how are they doing on getting this, ready? Just so I want to get as many of them in advance as possible. I have 4 right now. That's a long list. I only have 1 department, but I know folks are working on them and trying to turn them in early so that can help Kristen. It would help defray, a huge chunk all at once.
All right.
So I
So
think
would it
that's
be,
a great
can we-
idea.
can we task you with forwarding them
Yes,
to Kristen piecemeal? And then a
Yes.
little later down when we talk about it, or actually we just talk about it now. One of the things about the performance evaluation, I was talking to Vanessa, it's a confidential document. Technically, Kristen shouldn't have the full copy, but Vanessa had concerns about detaching the cover sheet from the full body because the name of the employee is nowhere except the first and last page. So think about it, Vanessa detaches the
Right.
cover sheet, especially when we're doing 40 or 45 of them, it could be chaos. So in line with what we've been talking about today, I don't want to talk about making an official change to the evaluation. I know people want to talk about changing it later on. I don't want to talk about rolling out a new performance evaluation form this week. I want to leave the eval form as it is. And I would like to maybe impose on Vanessa to correct that problem at her end. So the department heads aren't asked to do anything different, but Vanessa, when
Right.
these come in, could you just pencil the name of the employee on the evaluation on the second page?
certainly, yes.
So somehow, so you can detach and give Kristen the cover sheets.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
And the second piece of that is the name of the reviewer only appears on the last page.
Right,
This board may only see the cover page.
right.
Would you annotate by adding the name of the reviewer to the cover page?
Yep.
And we can do this officially later on in a box where we approve changes to the form for next year. I mean, the form was rolled out in November, December. So come November, December, I'm happy to look at it and say, how did it work? How did it not work? And have the official discussion. But just for now, for the synchronization process, Vanessa, if you could make those
Yes,
changes.
that's
Does that work
helpful.
for everybody?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. And I hate to burden you with that. It's a lot of paperwork, but I think it's a way around telling department heads
Right.
they have to change the form at this late date.
No, I agree.
And if you want some help, if you get 28 of them in, I'm happy to come over to the townhouse and sit outside with my mask and pencil in names. So, and we can talk about that offline.
Sure.
Thanks, everybody. All right, so right now we have a meeting scheduled for the 9th, and my feeling is maybe leave that, see how far we get, and then we can schedule a meeting for the 16th. Or I think, Jay, maybe you had an alternative to schedule 2 back-to-back meetings?
Either one, doesn't matter.
What works better for the board? You want to go ahead and notice a meeting for another day that week? Or just, my instinct is to wait a week and see because, yes, Vanessa?
I just wanted to add to the board that I have a number of conflicts that week. So if there is any ability to push the second meeting out to the 16th or another day that week, that would be great.
All right, so you would prefer that we stay with one meeting the week, the 9th is good for you, but no
I-
other meetings.
Yeah, and I have a conflict actually that day. So I will certainly be here, for the several weeks leading up to putting the packet together. But the day of your meeting on the 9th is a conflict for me.
All right, so my tendency is to want to have that meeting with you present. If you're receiving these, reviewing these, you're conducting them
I
over to Kristen. I don't know, am I worried for nothing if Vanessa's not there?
And the packet will be made ahead of time and distributed, of course, ahead of time. I just wanted to tell the board that I have a number of things that week that are.
But Monday's a holiday. Would it be easier for you if we had our first meeting on the 16th?
It would indeed, yes.
All right, Dorianne, did you say Disney is off the calendar?
I canceled it 2 days ago, so it's off the calendar, so I'm here.
All right, so I'm going to propose, looking at page 15 in the packet, I put in some of the holidays, especially the Jewish holidays that are relevant to me, maybe somebody else on the board. I propose that we cancel the meeting on the 9th, schedule a meeting for Wednesday, the 16th, and go ahead and schedule a meeting for Wednesday, the 23rd. Does that work for the board?
So you're saying the 16th and the 23rd?
Yeah, if we get through it on the 16th, we cancel the 23rd.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yep.
Yeah, can I
Nothing
just,
on the 9th.
I always had questions about the 9th, given that it's a holiday on Monday. And I just know we need lead time, and we have, as Barry said, hundreds of pages will be coming our way. So maybe the 16th makes more sense since Dorian is now available.
yeah, my only suggestion would be if we could get the reviews earlier. Because, if I get them on the Friday and I have to go through 45 review, it's a
Right.
lot to take in. So if we
Yeah.
could do it over a period or split them up if we're having 2 meetings or something. So we just don't have to do it all in a very short period of time.
Well, let's do it this way, Barry. I'm going to be reviewing everything. There's going to be 2 packets, 3 packets. It's going to get a little confusing because people are going to be submitting, I imagine, I'll get PDFs, and then I'm going to have to split them apart. And some of them are just going to get the cover sheet, and sometimes the board is going to get the full review, and I'm going to have to sort that out. So as I sort them out, I can forward them to the board. How's that sound? It would be a lot easier if the board saw the full review, honestly.
Well, again, we should be seeing a full review for everyone under what we're doing. It's a matter of which review we're seeing, but
Yeah.
we're always should be seeing at least a full review.
Yeah, but for example, for some of the employees, you're going to get 2 full reviews, the one before and the new one, and you're only going to get the cover sheet on the new one.
Right,
But I'm going to look at both of them,
right, correct.
and I'm going to need to advise the board if I think there's an issue. So it's going to be, we'll get through it. Yes, so Vanessa is going to forward cover sheets to Kristen as they become available, and I'm going to review what comes in and forward to the board. And Vanessa, I may work with you to, maybe it'd be easier if I had them in Word, I could split them. We'll figure out offline as they start to come in, the best way to go through that.
Okay.
I don't think, Barry's point is very well taken, and
I agree.
Vanessa and I will endeavor to get them, just as we're going to get them to Kristen on a rolling basis, get them to the board on a rolling basis. Sounds good. And I think, Vanessa, this is something that will be much easier to do in practice between the 2 of us when they start
Yes.
rolling in.
Thank you for moving the date. That's very helpful.
All right, so moving ahead to board calendar while I have everyone's attention. Board is going to meet not on the 9th, that's off. We're going to meet on Wednesday, September 16th. Does the noon slot still work for everybody? Is that good? At noon? And again, we will schedule a meeting for the 23rd, Wednesday, the 23rd at noon. And maybe we don't need it. All right. Do Mr. Valentine, Mr. Purple, Ms. Hale have any other issues about the rollout they want to discuss while we're here?
I'm good, thank you.
No, I'm
Okay.
good, thank you.
Board members, any other thoughts or concerns while we're all together?
All set.
Okay, great. And while we're here, maybe I can get the board's authorization to act for it. Sense of the board, we don't need a motion. If these sort of technical or procedural questions come up, I'm going to answer them and not convene an emergency meeting. Nod your heads. Does that work for you guys? All right, I had a sense that was the sense of the board, but that will help me and Vanessa. Because then I don't have to track down Barry or Jay. So I'll use my judgment. If I think there's something I don't understand, it's not a promise. I may still bother you, gentlemen. All right. All right, so we are on to old business. Number 2, performance evaluation form, discuss possible revisions. I think we've discussed this, and Vanessa's going to address a couple of fixes for now. And then I will put this on the calendar for a future meeting. I'm not sure when it would be appropriate to discuss the performance evaluation form, because we're not going to change it now. Sometime in November, December. So I'll just put in the minutes, we'll table this topic to a future meeting. How's that sound? And we'll see how our agendas develop. Because the form isn't really part of the SAP, it's something separate. So maybe November, maybe December. There was, aside from the technical fixes, there was an interesting point that came up while I have you all here. At the August 4th Board of Selectmen goal setting meeting where they talked about personnel and specifically performance evaluations. Mr. Purple made a comment that I found interesting. He told the BOS that in a previous incarnation, and maybe even before he was here, the PE form, the evaluation form, had a place for boards and committees to comment. And that's something that I've talked to Mark about since I got on the personnel board. And that was something that was of interest to the BOS. So that's a more substantive discussion for another day, whether or not we want to go back and include something like that on the form, in addition to the other technical just things that we've talked about. So I'll calendar this for November, December. All right. Last item on the agenda is old business number 3. Ms. Jasinski asked me to put an item on the agenda, the personnel board to review individual development plans. I do not have anything in writing. So Ms. Jasinski, I turn it over to you.
That really is also part of the tuition reimbursement discussion that we're gonna delay till January, so we might as well just hand it off to that, because based on the reimbursement policy, it says that the employees are supposed to meet with their managers and set goals. We've never seen anything like that. We've never seen any goals, so we don't even know if those goals were ever met. And it refers to this type of discussion with the managers and the employee when they approve courses. I think we need to redo this tuition reimbursement policy. So I would ask that we just defer this to the discussion then, because that's what this is referring to. Doesn't make sense to talk about it now.
I don't, in my opinion, I remember the genesis of the tuition reimbursement policy. It was something a prior member was going to work on it. It didn't happen, and I prevailed upon Mr. Dietz to work on it because he's got the professional background. And I thought it was a great point that employees shouldn't just pick a course out of midair. Talking about our responsibility to the taxpayer should relate to their job. So I believe Jay proposed that it be part of a development plan and that the manager and the employees sign off. And that made sense to me and to the rest of the board. But to the extent you think it needs further attention, fine. My one point is we have seen goals in previous evaluations. They're included. So you have the current performance evaluation form in the packet. So on page 31, the last page, professional development is part of the evaluation. And I believe I have seen these filled out before when the board saw the full review. The issue now is we're not going to see it because it's the last page. So just to your point that we've never seen goals, I think we've seen them before. Oh, also on page, sorry, it's this penultimate page, page 30, the second to last page of the performance SMART goals. We talked about these with Mr. Purple when we did the form. So the last 2 pages directly point to this, but the board's not going to see them if it only sees cover sheets.
But my point was, we don't see them with the tuition reimbursement. So when they apply for a tuition reimbursement or they ask for the money, we don't see the goals. We don't see anything from the manager that they've approved the course. We don't see anything. We just see the request for the money and we approve it or not approve it. We're missing a lot of pieces when we're doing this. So I think that this whole discussion needs to be done at a later date. I don't think that we can do this today.
All right, so you would like to include this, we'll table this, if it's a sense of the board, I'm sorry, board comments? Thank you, Ms. Jazinski. With the approval of the board, I'll table this to January under tuition reimbursement policy discussion. Does that work? Sounds good. And maybe we devote that meeting to looking at the evaluation form as well. Because the 2 things dovetail together.
Right.
In the evaluation form, the employee will have goals and should have they're supposed to have SMART goals and a professional development plan. So the question is, how are we going to see that in connection with tuition reimbursement? How do the 2 documents work together? So I think it makes sense to talk about those at the same time. That sound good?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. No other matters before the board? We've done our board calendar. This is a record. All right, folks. Stay well. We'll see you back here on the 16th. And we are adjourned at, I'm in shock. I can't speak. We are adjourned at 1:02. Thanks, folks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Stay well, everybody.
Here.
Okay.
Everybody, be safe.
Vanessa, do we have anything when you go offline? Do you want to chat?
Sure, can you hang on for a minute?
Absolutely. Go
Let me just
ahead.
stop the YouTube recording.
I'm a little nervous. This seemed way too easy.